I spent 7 years listening to the dead. That is the plainest way to say it. 7 years in a signals archive bay on the edge of the Heron Reach, pulling fragments out of corrupted relay logs, reconstructing waveforms from the ghost impressions they leave in carrier frequencies when someone scrubs them clean. The Vethani Broadcast Authority was thorough. I will give them that. When they deleted a transmission, they did not simply overwrite it. They calibrated the erasure, a precise resonance null that should, in theory, leave nothing behind. No echo, no carrier ghost, no proof that the signal ever existed. They did not account for the medium. Space is not a clean room. Every transmission ever sent leaves a faint pressure in the particle field around the relay tower that carried it, a residual vibration, decaying slowly over decades. The Vethani wiped the data. They could not wipe the physics. 7 years of that work, a converted signals vessel, ISN Callaway's silence, 16 analysts, and one standing directive from the Admiralty: recover what you can. We recovered all of it. Signal loss event SLE-001, habitat Cairn Voss, 4,214 souls, Heron Reach Outer Belt. The Vethani Broadcast Authority logged its destruction as a spontaneous atmospheric processor failure. The habitat's actual final transmission, 11 minutes of distress calls, including specific coordinates, specific failure codes, and the names of 41 children in the habitat's lower deck shelter, was deleted from the relay record within 6 hours of the event. We recovered it. We recovered all 31. When the Meridian broadcast arrived, I was standing at my console in the archive bay. 850 warships, 31 columns, one for each habitat. I had spent 7 years with these voices. I was not going to miss the morning they were returned. The broadcast's flagship, INS Heron's Answer, opened the operation at 0714 local. No announcement, no ultimatum. The Vethani Broadcast Authority had been notified through Traverse Accord channels 14 days prior. The notification listed the relevant article, the specific findings, and the precise schedule of compliance actions. The authority had responded with a formal jurisdictional objection, citing autonomous relay management rights under Compact Directive 88 Vethera. The objection was logged, acknowledged, and filed. Then the Meridian broadcast arrived anyway. Column 1 reached Relay Tower Voss Primary at 07114. The tower handled 11 Heron Reach sectors. It was also the tower that had received and deleted the final transmission from Cairn Voss, carrying the 41 children in the lower deck shelter. I had the recovered file open on my console. I had been looking at it for 7 years. I knew its waveform the way I know my own hands. The Meridian broadcast did not fire immediately. That is the thing people do not understand when I describe what happened. There was a pause, maybe 40 seconds, while the column's lead ship locked the tower's own broadcast frequency. The authority used a proprietary signal format, Carrier Wave 7, Kova Null. They were very proud of it, very particular about its exclusive use across their relay network. At 0715, on Carrier Wave 7 Kova Null, the recovered transmission from Cairn Voss went out across every receiver in the Heron Reach that the authority had ever serviced. 4,214 voices, 11 minutes. The 41 children in the lower deck shelter. The operations officer calling the same coordinates into the silence for 8 minutes before the atmospheric failure reached her console. The last automated ping from the habitat's emergency beacon, still functioning, still transmitting, until the moment the authority's erasure pulse reached the tower. At 0726, Column 1 dismantled Relay Tower Voss Primary. I did not watch the tower fall. I was watching the waveform on my console, the recovered signal, playing in real time across the authority's own network. The carrier frequency that carried it was the same one they had used to confirm the erasure 31 years ago. I had checked the archival logs. The erasure confirmation ping had gone out on 7 Kova Null at 0311 on the morning of the Cairn Voss event. Same frequency, same tower. The Meridian broadcast was not sentimental about it. It was simply precise. By 0900, 6 columns had reached their towers. 6 recovered transmissions were on the air. By 1200, 14. The authority's legal division had begun broadcasting a counter-objection on their emergency administration channel. A dense procedural filing, very detailed, citing 17 separate compact directives. No one answered it. The Meridian broadcast was not listening to the authorities' channels. It was only using them. I ate lunch at my console. An analyst named Paris brought me something from the galley and set it beside my station without speaking. We had worked together for 4 years. She had spent those 4 years reconstructing SLE-019, Habitat Ordron 6, 1,889 souls, a transport relay station in the outer corridor. The transmission from Ordron 6 was the most damaged of the 31. The erasure had been especially thorough, perhaps because the Habitat's operations officer had been particularly persistent. 11 minutes of the standard distress sequence, then 32 minutes of the officer simply reading the Habitat's full crew and resident manifest into the open channel. Name by name. She understood by that point that no rescue was coming. She was making sure the names existed somewhere. Paris had spent 4 years recovering that manifest. She had gotten 1,851 of the 1,889 names to full fidelity. The other 38 were partial. She had cross-referenced them against transit records and population indices until she had reasonable confidence in all but 3. Column 19 reached Relay Tower Ordron Primary at 1347. Paris did not look up from her console when it went on the air. I watched her. She had her hands flat on the edge of the station, and she was perfectly still, and the only thing moving was the waveform display showing the broadcast active on 7 Cova Null, the same carrier the authority had used to erase it. 32 minutes of an operations officer reading names into a channel she believed was silent. It was not silent anymore. The authority's compliance director came on the general compact frequency at 1500. His name was Vethani Secundus. He was the third most senior administrator in the Broadcast Authority's regulatory division, and he had, I later learned, been the signatory on 11 of the 31 SLE erasure confirmations. He spoke for approximately 6 minutes. He cited the irreversibility of past administrative actions, the legal authority of the original compact directives under which the SLE protocol had operated, and the formal position of the authority that the current Meridian broadcast action constituted unauthorized interference with licensed relay infrastructure. He asked that the operation be suspended, pending mediated review. No one answered him either. By 1900, 26 columns had reached their towers, 26 recovered transmissions on the authority's own frequencies. The reach was full of voices that had been silenced for between 9 and 31 years, and the only sound louder than them was the particular quiet of 850 warships doing methodical work. I know what column 30 was. SLE-030 was Habitat Meridian Cross, 3,741 souls, the farthest reach of the outer belt. The habitat had been primarily home to first-generation settlers, people who had built it themselves, over 11 years, from a salvaged transit frame and imported prefab sections. The transmission from Meridian Cross was 22 minutes. The first 8 were standard distress. The last 14 were the Habitat's senior council, 5 people, elderly, calm, taking turns speaking, describing what they had built and who had lived in it, for the record. One of the 5 specifically asked that if anyone recovered the transmission, they not use it as a reason for violence. He asked that it simply be heard. Column 30 reached Relay Tower Meridian Primary at 2203. The transmission went out on 7 Cova Null at 2204. I listened to all 14 minutes. I have listened to them perhaps 200 times in 7 years. They did not change. The 5 voices, patient and specific, describing what they had made. The one voice, asking to simply be heard. At 2218, the tower was dismantled. Column 31 reached Relay Tower Vos Tertiary at 2341. SLE-031 was the last of them. Habitat Callaway Reach, 2,109 souls, a medical outpost, 8 minutes of transmission. The last 90 seconds were automated. The Habitat's emergency locator beacon, still cycling, still announcing its coordinates into a channel the authority had already emptied. The Meridian broadcast put SLE-031 on the air at 2342. Carrier wave 7 Cova Null, the same frequency it had been deleted from, the same morning, 26 years ago. At 2350, Relay Tower Vos Tertiary was dismantled. The operation closed at 2353 on 2026 June 27th. 31 towers, 850 warships, 14 hours and 39 minutes, all 31 recovered transmissions on the air, on the Authority's own frequencies, for the duration of the dismantling operation, and for 60 minutes after the last tower fell, broadcasting into open galactic space on a carrier wave that now had no relay towers left to carry it. I did not close the archive when it was over. The record stays open. That is standing policy, and it is also the only reasonable response to the situation. The dead were transmitting. They were transmitting when the Authority deleted them. They are transmitting still.